World Autism Awareness Day is marked on the 2nd of April to raise awareness of the condition and its impact on individuals and families. The United Nations Secretary General Ban Ki-moon said, and I quote, "On this World Autism Awareness Day, I call for advancing the rights of individuals with autism and ensuring their full participation and inclusion as valued members of our diverse human family who can contribute to a future of dignity and opportunity for all." So today we focus on autism spectrum disorders. We will, as shown in the introductory clip, see and understand the potential that people living with autism have. We have a parent as one of our guests, and we'll also show you other parents, including the South African golf professional Annie Els and his wife. Now, all these parents will share their experience of raising a child with autism. We also have on our panel the National Education Facilitator from Autism South Africa to give us a global view of autism in South Africa. Other experts on our panel include a medical practitioner, an occupational therapist, and a speech therapist who all specialize in the management of autism. Now, these experts will help us understand what autism is, how it is diagnosed, how children with autism cope with education and learning in a school environment, their social interaction, and how these children are managed and supported. So sit back, relax, and learn from this bumper show ahead. You can interact with us on our Facebook page, SABC Health Talk, and on Twitter at SABC Health Talk. I'm Dr. Sello Mutaung, and this is Health Talk.
Have you noticed strange behavior in your child that you cannot fully understand?
Autism is a psychological disorder and is characterized by deficits in socialization, communication, and also includes repetitive behaviors.
Children on the autism spectrum are faced with many developmental delays. Children on the spectrum exhibit with deficits in the areas of language and communication. They often struggle to make friends. They have deficits in reading social cues. They can exhibit with stereotypical behaviors.
Elena noticed poor speech development in her child. He was not playing appropriately with other children.
He used to spin the wheel of the car instead of taking the car and pushing it on the ramp. He had lots of self-stimulatory behavior. So he would walk on his toes, he would flap his hands. We noticed that he had repetitive behaviors. So he would need to stick to routines a lot.
At times I was picked on. Called names like Jackie Chan or Jackie. I hated it. He wanted to ask how much I miss my friends. I miss them a lot.
Many autistic children experience difficulties in speech. However, Jack Milan has autism and can speak.
They would call me names, make fun of how I was different.
One of the things is awareness. It is, and I come from a township, so when I look at where I come from, it's absolutely, people don't know what autism is. You say autism and people give you this blank stare like you just talk Mandanese or something. And one of the big things in South Africa is awareness of autism and awareness of specifically applied behavioral analysis, which for me I feel is such a great tool. It is, and it's not only a great tool for kids who are on the spectrum, but it's also a great tool anyway, really. And we need to be using more ABA to reach more people.
All right, so what really causes autism? Is it perhaps bad parenting or extreme misbehavior by the children? Is it anybody's fault? Well, let's find out from the experts. Now, in our Johannesburg studio, we have Vicky Lemb. Now, Vicky is the National Education Facilitator from Autism South Africa. Welcome to Health Talk, Vicky.
Thank you.
All right. And then in our Cape Town studio, we're joined by Dr. Louise Lindenberg, who's an integrative medical practitioner with special interest in autism. Welcome to Health Talk, Dr. Lindenberg.
Good morning, thank you.
All right. Perhaps let's just stay with you for a while. Can you just help us understand what exactly autism is? We hear there's autism, we hear there's autism spectrum disorders. Please take us through that.
Autism is a psychiatric diagnosis, and in 2013, the manual that the psychiatrist used to make the diagnosis changed the concept of autism to autistic spectrum disorder to include the fact that we have so many presentations of autism, and each person actually presents with his own individual characteristics. But basically, the diagnosis is made on basis of two sets of criteria. Firstly, the speech and communication and relationship side of things, and then on the other side, repetitive behaviors, self-stimulatory behavior, and then sensory dysregulation, which is more the sensory sensitivity that a lot of children present with that never used to be recognized as part of the spectrum.
So is it a neurological condition or a psychiatric condition? Just clarify that.
The diagnosis is made on basis of a psychiatric condition, but we like to see it as a neurodiverse condition.
Right.
In other words, a neurological patterning.
All right. Maybe let's cross over back to our studio in Johannesburg and speak to Vicky. Vicky, now you're from Autism South Africa.
Yes.
Firstly, tell us what Autism South Africa is. What do you guys do? And how much of a problem is autism in South Africa?
So we're the national body for autism within South Africa, and we look at raising awareness, advocacy for people with autism, training of professionals to work with individuals with autism, not just children, but adults as well, as it is a lifelong condition. That's what Autism South Africa does generally.
All right, okay. So how much of a problem is autism in South Africa? How common is it?
We don't know.
Yeah.
Sort of based on statistics, we don't have enough prevalence studies that have been done just yet. But what we can assume is it's about 2% of the population currently that is affected by autism.
About 2%.
Yeah.
And are there any population groups perhaps where this is a lot more common than the others?
As far as we're aware at this point in time, it's right across the board. So
any differences in
any race, any ethnicity,
gender?
any culture. Gender there is.
Yeah.
So in gender we see a ratio of one girl to 4 boys.
Okay.
And that's possibly, the research is telling us at the moment that it's due to genetics, but we aren't sure.
All right, okay. Let's get back to Dr. Lindenberg in Cape Town. Dr. Lindenberg, perhaps if you could just tell us, I mean, you say that it's a behavioral thing. How can somebody know that, this child might actually be having autism? So what are those warning signs for autism spectrum disorders, or perhaps put differently, how is this diagnosed?
Most children present with speech delay, so that is often when the parents start becoming a little bit worried about their child. But if you look at early signs, it would be a child who's more alert.
Technology isn't all scary. There's also fun stuff like gaming.
Lots of women do play games, whether it's on their phones or their tablets.
Then there are Africans who are using new tools to make other people's lives much easier.
We typed the whole CV on a small, QWERTY Nokia phone.
For all these and other technology and social media news, join me, Spumelele Zondi, every Sunday at 7:30 p.m. Central African Time on SABC News.
They are basically arresting him, continue to arrest him on behalf of the apartheid government.
We are dealing with effects. We are not dealing with the causes. And for as long as we deal with effects, we are never going to solve this problem.
What do these people need in prison? Why are they there? The PAC, as Dr. Pegu is saying, has been seeking answers, and they're not coming.
What kind of answers are you getting?
I really think I've answered that question.
I think it's a difficult question. I don't have an answer for it. How was it possible that they could operate with such impunity?
The only thing you want is closure.
The only thing we want is closure. And unfortunately, I don't really have sympathy for the idea that if you're too old, you shouldn't stand trial.
That's Rights and Recourse with Dumile Mateza, every Sunday at 2 p.m. Central African Time, only on the SABC News Channel.
The act of travel is an eye-opening activity that not only expands your view but is a major part of any country's economy. South Africa's spectacular scenery, friendly people and world-class infrastructure make it one of the most desired destinations in the world. Despite tough global economic conditions, the tourism sector is steadily growing. But the idea that one has to go far in order to explore is quickly changing as the sector encourages local exploration. South Africa's history has been one of confrontation, but is now also known as one of reconciliation. World-class sites have been established to commemorate the country's past and celebrate its newfound unity. An area of tourism that is often overlooked is the question of the arts and tourism. Although many cities have not taken advantage of this element to attract international visitors, the domestic artistic tourism is fast becoming a key drawcard for local exploration. A-grade exhibition centers are creating modern spaces to showcase what makes up the African expression. A good dose of creative capital is playing a major role as entrepreneurs create new and exciting ways to sell their products, thus creating new vibrant local spaces that are changing the face of our communities. South Africa has earmarked tourism as a key sector with excellent potential for growth, and a vast amount is being poured into changing the face of our spaces, making them vibrant, urban, and exciting.
And so autism can be a very, very difficult condition for parents to live with.
Things have been not always easy. There have been lots of challenges, but there's also lots of things to be positive about. Sometimes it's hard to think about the positive things. You want to mull over the negative things. I don't know if you've had similar experiences.
Yes. Being a young mother as I am, I know how hard it is to have an autistic child, and I know the joy of being a mother again because of when he starts growing up, developing things, developing speech because of he didn't have speech, and then when he started developing speech, I was so happy because of I thought he was deaf, he didn't speak at all. So, but when I heard that he will be able to speak, I was happy. Then at the time, I was still younger than this. But when he grew and then he developed things, then I was so happy to see him developing things like.
And does he speak now?
Yes, he does. Perfectly. But not long speech. He got short speech, but you can hear what he's saying.
Yeah, my boy is also, he can't tell me everything that happened in the day, but he can tell me what he ate and if he went to the shops or he was dancing, and he tells me in a funny kind of roundabout way what he did. And some of the things that make us laugh at home are some of the words and the phrases that he uses, which are, I can't even, it's not even normal speech.
In 2002, Ernie Els and his wife Liesel gave birth to their first boy and youngest child, Ben. In 2007, the family was told that the son of the two-time major champion had severe autism.
I had a bit of a tough time for a while dealing with the fact that Ben was autistic, and then hearing the other stories, it doesn't really make you feel better, but you can relate to other people's problems, and it really does help you.
There are some days when you want to just get in a closet and close the doors and be very quiet and pretend you don't exist anymore. But everyone goes through that. Everyone has those feelings, and sharing it definitely makes it easier.
These kids, they need your attention, a lot more than a normal child does. So it's such a tough deal on families.
As Liesel will tell you, even the smallest of accomplishments are worth celebrating. Putting together a proper sentence, putting on the t-shirt laid out for him before school, or simply putting himself in the car to get to school are all things that pose daily challenges for a parent with a child that has autism. And sometimes all you can do is laugh.
You have to have a sense of humor. If you can't laugh at yourself, your reactions, and some of the things that our kids get up to, you'll never make it through. Please have a sense of humor with them. They are quite funny.
One thing is for sure, Liesl and Ernie know how to laugh with Ben, and they also know that it takes tremendous effort to take care of a child with autism.
Interesting. All right, to get more enlightened on what it is like living with ASD, let's welcome another parent, Sylvia Seleke, who's got a young, bubbly boy with autism. Sylvia, welcome to Health Talk.
Thank you, Doug.
All right.
Thank you for...
And we still have, obviously, in our Joburg studio, Vicky Lem, who's the National Facilitator for Autism South Africa. And in our Cape Town studio, Dr. Louise Lindenberg, an integrative medical practitioner with special interest in autism. Now, let's start with you, Sylvia. We just heard other parents talk about their experiences with their children. Any else basically say, well, you got to have a very good sense of humor in raising these children. Yes, it can be challenges. Tell us your story. Tell us about your little boy.
Okay. My little boy, first time when he was diagnosed, he was 3.5. And at that stage, I was in denial because I didn't know what was autism and how to handle, where to go, where to start. Then I thought, like, no, it's just a child, we will be fine, because I was in a denial stage. Until that I was referred to Johannesburg Hospital unit, where we get all Prof. Jacqueline and Dr. DeForth, and they referred me to speech therapy and occupational therapists, whereby they told me that they asked me a question, what am I saying, the milestone as to, does he respond to speech when you're talking, social interaction with other kids, and so forth, which my boy didn't respond to that. He had no speech at his 3 years age, and we thought that, oh no, he will come right, because due to his medical condition, maybe it could be that. And he could not socialize with other kids. Even me at home, when I play with him with exchanging toys, he didn't show any interest on that. This is how they said, okay, this child, he might be autistic. And we were referred to the other unit in a hospital where he was diagnosed that he is autistic. And I was referred to Johannesburg Hospital School of Autism in Parktown, where he started schooling when he was 4 years. But I still also being in denial, because by then he was on a diaper at his 4 years to 4 years and a half. I was like embarrassed. I said, how can I take my child to school with a diaper on? How will they do? So should I stay there and change him, or what else? Only to find that the school has got facilities whereby they've got extra school teachers. A very supportive environment where they assist us parents who are kids, grown-up kids who are still on diapers and so forth.
Okay, we're going to get back to the school environment and so on. But let me just ask you, Vicky, she mentioned something significant, that she was in denial. Now, as Autism South Africa, what do you do for parents? Clearly, this can't be easy for a parent to then be told that your child has severe autism and can't go to a normal school and this and that. Just tell us about that.
So it is difficult for parents, and I'm sure Sylvia went through a process where we almost see the parents go through like a grieving process for the loss of a child that they weren't expecting. So it does take time, and we've got to give those parents time to adjust to what life is going to be like now. We've got various booklets available for our parents. We offer counselling services as well. So we're trying to support them as much as possible.
Let's cross over to Cape Town and speak to Dr. Lindenberg. Now, Dr. Lindenberg, we spoke earlier about the developmental milestones. Perhaps if you could just take us through if there is anything such as a typical picture in autism in terms of delays, I would imagine, in development and growth in children. What typically do you see?
It's general. There are lots of presentations, but I think typically one would see that parents would be concerned about their child when the child isn't using words by the age of 2. A lot of parents are concerned about their child not being able to hear and take their children for a hearing test at an early age, probably around about the 18 months mark. Behavioral things, children who aren't interested in playing with toys, who have obsessive connections to toys, that might be something that might prompt the parent to look for help. And then often the parent would raise the concerns with the general practitioner or pediatrician, and often because it's a developmental disorder, people would postpone to make the diagnosis because things might change, and a lot of the presentation is put down to, oh, it's just a boy, he will talk later. And sometimes you lose the opportunity to intervene at an early stage to keep that development as close as possible to the normal range. So unfortunately, sometimes the diagnosis goes missing because people are still trying to adjust to the developmental aspect of things. So I do think that it's important to emphasize that if there are concerns, that people become aware and that they seek for help, and try to get answers to what their concerns are about.
Are there any dangers in delayed diagnosis? I mean, what are the possible consequences?
It's always nicer to be able to intervene at an early stage to keep the development as close as possible to normal, and to have the developmental changes take place at an early stage, because as soon as you're on a different level of development, things stagnate and things stay the same in a certain way. So each developmental phase is a very big foundation for the next phase to happen. So we always emphasize early intervention where we can.
Okay, let's get back to you, Sylvia. Am I correct in saying that this is your only child?
No.
Okay. Very well then. How then, and the other children?
My daughter, she's 24 years old.
Okay.
Yes.
Okay. So there's a bit of a gap there.
Yes.
Because what I'm getting to now is raising both children, one who has autism, one who hasn't got autism, challenges and typical things that go on in the family. Do you want to share that with us?
Yes. The challenge is that this other one, because the age difference, the challenge, it's not that much, because this one is she's now more understanding and supportive, though sometimes, she would, because she hasn't had that kind of
she also needs her time.
She also needed time. And now she is now in a working environment, corporate environment. I need to also coach her and guide her, and sometimes. So you find that the most challenge is that I don't have much time for her because of this little boy who needs my attention, support, and he also needs attention and support from his sister. So that's the most challenge, because I don't have quality time with the other one, except this one.
Vicky, your perspective, I mean, clearly, I'm sure there are situations where you have a family where, one of the children, perhaps not where there's a huge age, age gap, as it were. Your experience there and what you normally advise parents.
So we often see that the sort of neurotypical developing child does kind of get pushed aside sometimes for the child with autism or child with special needs in general. And we do need to try and encourage parents to remember that they do have other children who also need their attention. It's important. And I think in Sylvia's case, she's quite lucky that age gap is quite big, so that she has been able to kind of explain and raise a little bit of understanding.
Okay. Before we run out of time, in fact, we have run out of time, but I need, in 30 seconds, just tell us how you are coping as a parent and how you, with other parents with similar, children, organize themselves. In 30 seconds.
I'm coping through the supporting system that the school is giving us as parents, and also from home, the supporting system that I'm getting from my daughter as well. And now with other parents, we've established a group whereby we can discuss on a chat group our challenges, and if maybe there's something that you don't understand that has just recently developed, and we share our experiences, guide each other as to how to overcome the challenges that you are coming across to.
Okay, well,
yes.
All right, well, Sylvia, thank you very much for sharing your stories with us, and I wish you all the best with you and your little boy.
Thank you.
All right, so after the break, then we look at special versus normal schools for children with autism. Please stay with us.
The big news is Newsroom.
We also stream live on YouTube.
Whether you're at home, at the office, or at the gym, wherever you are, Newsroom is right there with you. Bringing you all the latest news, updates, sports, weather, and everything in between. Get all the latest news you need on the go via live streaming on our YouTube channel. That's Newsroom, weekdays at 9 a.m. only on the SABC News channel.
Good afternoon, you're watching the Midday Report.
Lunchtime news amplified.
But for now, this is what they call home. Their hope to shift to a higher ground seems to be against the tide.
Midday Report provides you with more than just news stories.
I just want Port Elizabeth to know that they own a world-class theatre.
Good afternoon, you're with the news at 1 in the headlines.
Very good afternoon to you. This is News Live. I'm Natasha Thorpe. Let's take a quick look at what's coming up in your headlines.
Good afternoon and welcome to A View from the House.
For all things news, tune in to Midday Report weekdays at 12 noon only on the SABC News channel.
This is the Johannesburg Hospital Children's Disability Centre, one of very few schools in the country which caters for autistic children. According to recent statistics, 1 in every 110 children in South Africa is born with autism.
Autism is an invisible disability. People very often judge children with autism as being naughty or as being defiant, and it's not. It's because they have that inability to understand social rules that we very often just accept.
People with autism have difficulty interacting with others and communicating. Their senses are sometimes impaired and they have a rigid way of thinking. Children who don't have autism can develop simple basic skills that allow them to learn, like the ability to sit, listen, or focus their attention.
Children with autism don't have these skills as part of their development. These are skills that have to be taught directly to children with autism before they can start formal learning. Daddy. 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 It is extremely important that these kids receive early intervention. We believe that we can start at the age of 3 and that it makes a significant difference to start teaching these skills to our children.
However, some of these children may never be able to read, write, or communicate. But here they can learn everyday skills that will give them a certain level of independence. And for them and their families, these small, simple achievements can change their lives.
We want our kids to be functional. We want them to learn skills that has meaning. A child that is able to write, but that is not yet able to bath themselves, doesn't really make sense. You don't want to bath an 18-year-old. So we focus on everyday life skills. We teach them to dress and undress, to wash their hands, to use the toilet. We teach them these skills that we all take for granted.
Unfortunately, autism is an expensive disability to overcome. One autistic child needs the same amount of attention as 6 neurotypical or normal children.
Children with autism requires a whole lot more attention, a lot more specific intervention, and one autistic child is equal to 6 neurotypical children. So in effect, a class that has 8 autistic kids, the teacher is working with 48 neurotypical kids. And that is costly. Our biggest expense is in terms of having enough people to work with our kids in these small groups.
These children are the lucky ones. Most can't get into a school like this.
A lot of these kids are kept at home, are hidden away from society, and that they don't benefit at all, that parents are frustrated, that families don't know what to do, where to go. I believe that every child has the right to an education, and it should be no different for children with autism. And that is something that we desperately need in our country.
Bye-bye.
Every child indeed has a right to education. So let's understand a little more about the school environment and learning process for children with autism. We still have with us in our studio in the middle, Vicky Lamb, who is the National Education Facilitator for Autism South Africa. And we're joined by 2 other special guests. On the left of Vicky is Renata Mosca, who's a speech therapist at Chrysalis Preschool. Welcome to Health Talk.
Welcome, thank you.
Did I say it right? Chrysalis?
Yes. I'm at the University of Pretoria, but I work with Chrysalis in their program.
All right. Well, welcome to Health Talk. We'll learn more about what speech therapy does for these young ones. Okay. And then, of course, on the right side of Vicky is Candice Else. No relation to any else, she says. Who's an occupational therapist and head of Chrysalis Preschool. Welcome to Health Talk.
Thank you very much.
All right. Now, we heard in the clip, perhaps let's start with you, Vicky. Obviously they're talking about then they're showing what typically goes on in that school for autism. Let's start off by clearing one thing. Is it possible for a child with autism to go to a normal school?
So it would depend on the child.
Yeah.
And the individual with autism. Sometimes they do cope in a mainstream environment, but often we see them struggling with the social environment.
Right.
So we do see social issues like bullying, or they're lonely, they can't make friends, they don't know how to make friends. Yeah. For your more severe children and even your moderate children, a special needs school environment is great because it provides them with support and structure and routine.
Yeah.
And people with autism thrive on support, structure, well, not so much support, but structure and routine within the schooling and education environment.
Okay, so in essence, you're saying, they best placed in a special school for children with autism.
Yeah, or an environment.
Let's talk
with
access.
structure.
How accessible are these schools?
Very difficult, often very difficult. So a lot of the schools who are government and are affordable have long waiting lists. Fortunately in Gauteng, they are starting to open more and more schools for autism, but of course it's not enough just yet. Private schooling is often quite expensive for these parents and unaffordable, so access is tricky.
So it's possible then that there are many parents out there with their children who are autistic who are unable to get into these special schools. By the way, having said autistic, what is the correct lingo here? Is it cool to say autistic, or do you say rather children with autism?
That's debatable.
Debatable. All right, as long as I haven't said the wrong thing. But let's get now back to the typical school environment. And let's start with you, Renata. Clearly, these kids need a lot of assessment throughout their schooling.
Mm-hmm.
Just take us through what you assess and what your experience is with children with autism insofar as speech is concerned.
And with reference to a typical school, you get schools that have ranges of resources and abilities. So there are children that have been mainstreamed or gone to a typical school, and then you really work a lot with the teacher and a lot with the occupational therapist, and then the team has to come in and support.
Mm-hmm.
So there are, for the higher functioning children, there are opportunities. The resources are not always there, but there's things that we can do together.
Okay.
In terms of assessment, as early as possible, we want to see these children.
Yeah.
So
what typically do you then see with these kids? Are they able to say single words? Are they able to put words together to form a sentence?
If the children don't have a diagnosis yet, sometimes they come and they say, I've got this diagnosis and I know you need speech-language therapy.
Yeah.
Otherwise, we see a child and they're not speaking or the parents are concerned. When a parent is concerned, they're usually right. A parent has a gut feeling about something.
Yeah.
So we encourage any parent that has a worry to go and see a therapist or see a doctor. So when we see them and they are concerned they're not speaking or they're not interacting, things like that. And with a child that is 2, 3, even 5, you can't always do formal testing.
Right.
Then we do a play-based assessment.
Okay.
So because children's jobs is playing, so we go through play and we look at what typical play happens and then what they are doing and make comparisons. And then look, a lot of play takes communication. So we can look at their communication stage and the interaction and their play skills, all from an informal, but you're still going and completing checklists and a battery of tools, but you're doing the assessment through play.
Something significant you said there was that you're working as a team. So it's a multidisciplinary team that includes the teacher and the occupational therapist.
And the parent.
The
parent is our number one team member. And if your parents aren't with you and aware of what you're doing and you're not joint goal setting, an hour of me giving therapy is nothing. It's not going to make progress, where an hour of me training a parent with the child and they're going home and doing it throughout their daily routines, that's where you see progress.
Let's involve another member of the multidisciplinary team, the occupational therapist. Candice Els?
Yes.
Okay, from an occupational therapy or physical play environment, please tell us what you basically go through.
Okay, so I'm fortunate enough to, Chrysalis preschoolers joined to the Baby Therapy Centre.
Yeah.
So as Renata was saying, a lot of the parents will be the first people to see that there is something not quite on par with their child, be it communication or repetitive movements. So they are then able to bring their little ones to the Baby Therapy Centre, where they do a collaborative and we have an OT, speech therapist, dietitian and physiotherapist on hand.
Right.
And then, as Renata mentioned, the parents. The parents are utmost important. And the assessment procedure there is done within a team. And from there, and why I'm saying we're fortunate enough is because then we're able to assist these parents with the children being young children.
Yeah.
I think our youngest child, you can start picking up some of the symptoms from 9 months already, and then they can be diagnosed at 18 months. And then from there they move to Chrysalis or preschool for special needs children from 3 onwards, where we hope to give them the support and the structure and routine that Vicky was talking about at the preschool. So from my point of view as an occupational therapist, we work really, really closely with the other team members and the parents, but we then look at the sensory aspects, because a majority of the children with autism have sensory processing disorders as well.
Well, talk about sensory processing disorder, issues. The school environment itself, what should it be like? Should classrooms look like typical classrooms like any other school? Are there differences?
So with regards to sensory processing disorders, you've got to take in all the senses that you and I have. But for a lot of our children, I always explain for our autistic children or children with sensory processing disorders that you and I have a traffic cop at the base of our brain, and all the information that we're getting through sight, hearing, smell, taste, touch and movement come to that traffic cop, and he goes, well, you're important, you're not important. The important stuff goes to our brain and we act on it, and the non-important stuff we're not even aware of. For our autistic children, they get bombarded with that sensory stuff. So within the classrooms, we can't have a whole lot of bright pictures on the wall. We can't have a lot of noise going on in the background. We don't have our children sitting on, or a few of our children sitting on chairs. They need to be sitting on therapy balls or disco seats or something like that, that assists them in concentrating, and we need to block out as much sensory input
Fascinating stuff. We just need, I mean, there's so much to talk about, but unfortunately we've run out of time now. We just need to go for a quick commercial break. When we return, we look at management and support of children with autism spectrum disorders. Stay with us.
Good afternoon. You're watching the Midday Report.
Lunchtime news amplified.
But for now, this is what they call home. Their hope to shift to higher ground seems to be against the tide.
Midday Report provides you with more than just news stories.
I just want Port Elizabeth to know that they own a world-class theatre.
Good afternoon. You're with the news at 1 in the headlines.
Very good afternoon to you. This is News Live. I'm Natasha Thorpe. Let's take a quick look at what's coming up in your headlines.
Good afternoon and welcome to A View from the House.
For all things news, tune in to Midday Report weekdays at 12 noon only on the SABC News channel. News Today keeps you informed with news locally and around the world.
When Judge John Hlophe challenged the Supreme Court of Appeal when it sent the matter back and said that there must be an inquiry set up.
We unpack business news.
There's an increase in general inflation in the country.
We give you up-to-date news of the day.
The drugs were seized at several locations in Sydney, including a shipping container sent from Hong Kong. Police saying it's the largest haul of illicit drugs in 2 years.
We round up sports news.
Kotata, tell me about the legacy that you would like to build and be remembered for.
Trying to get my foundation running, which is going to focus on, all the sport, doesn't matter disability or able body. So, I'm passionate about sports.
Stay informed every Monday to Friday from 3 to 5:30 p.m. CAT. SABC News.
Big news is Newsroom.
We also stream live on YouTube.
Whether you're at home, at the office or at the gym, wherever you are, Newsroom is right there with you. Bringing you all the latest news, updates, sports, weather and everything in between. Get all the latest news you need on the go via live streaming on our YouTube channel. That's Newsroom, weekdays at 9 a.m. only on the SABC News channel.
Welcome back to Health Talk. If you just joined us, we're talking autism, and we're now in this segment going to be talking about management and support of children with autism spectrum disorders. We still have with us in our Johannesburg studio Renata Mosca, a speech therapist, Candice Els on the other end, an occupational therapist, and in the middle, Vicky Lamb, National Education Facilitator for Autism South Africa, and in our Cape Town studio, Dr. Louise Lindenberg, who's a medical practitioner with special interest in treating children with autism. Now let's cross over to Cape Town and talk to Dr. Lindenberg. Now, we've heard fascinating stories about, the school environment and multidisciplinary teams of looking after children and so on. Now, children with autism rather. Let's talk about now management. I mean, clearly, even in that aspect, in terms of management, it's a multidisciplinary team. The medical practitioner plays some role. Can you perhaps just take us through what your role is in this management or treatment of children with autism? Is there a medical treatment? Perhaps let's start there.
The medical treatment really is there to support and underpin the other therapies. So there is no medical treatment that would take away autism, but you can treat certain aspects. In my practice, I look at a wider spectrum than just prescribing medicine. So we look at the diet. We try to optimize everything. We look at certain biochemical processes that we can support to support further development. And then there are specific medications that might be indicated. Sometimes antipsychotics are used, sometimes anti-epileptic medications are used, sometimes antidepressant medications are used, and sometimes we need to intervene and give specific medication to facilitate concentration. So those are the medical parts, the real prescription medications. There are serious medications, but there are a lot of other medical interventions that one can do that also can support the developmental process.
Yeah, so there's both short-term and long-term type of medication that might be prescribed from time to time, correct?
Yes,
okay.
Absolutely.
Let's talk about nutrition. You mentioned something else there about nutrition. What sort of nutritional interventions may be necessary typically?
The very best diet for a child is to have a healthy, whole foods diet on a reasonably rotation basis. In other words, not to have the same foods every day. And most of our children are quite self-restrictive about their diets. So we need to make sure that they get the specific nutrients that are necessary for normal development. And we find that children these days have atrocious diets. So that's a very good point to start.
All right. And then the stories about sugary drinks and so on, with the story that obviously these increase physical activity. I mean, they make these children, jump up and down and so on. Your thoughts on that?
I do think we have a community who's addicted to sugar. So I think excluding sugar, because of lots of metabolic consequences, is a very important aspect of things. But often sugar is related to artificial additives, and those additives can actually affect the children's behavior. So it's important to look at those things too, artificial sweeteners, artificial colorants, artificial preservatives, because those things could all be potentially toxic for the brain and toxic for brain function then.
All right, let's come back to Joburg and speak to Renata. In terms of now managing and supporting, I know we've spoken a lot about how you assess these children and help them and so on. Clearly, there might be instances where the teacher then comes to you to say, look, there's a bit of a problem here. We need your intervention. Take us through what you typically do.
So what we'll always do is what we call joint goal setting, where I go, I really want to work on this. Can everyone else reinforce it? And the parent goes, I'm having an issue with this. And then everyone does it. So we try and set goals together and then reinforce each other. So if a teacher came to me and said, I'm having this issue, I work on with the child one-on-one, usually the parents there if possible. So it's a much easier situation than within a classroom. So if I can build that skill up one-on-one, and remember, education is very communication-based, be it non-verbal or through assistive devices or whatever, it's communication. So if I can build that communicative skill up one-on-one, and then start branching it up, you always have to think in a ladder. Like, I have to get it on this level, then we make it a bit harder on a different context, then I'd ask the occupational therapist to do it there as well, and we keep building it up to a skill set. So we would work like that.
What about from an OT perspective, Candice?
From an OT perspective, it's pretty much what Renata is saying. We really do want to work within a team, collaboratively, and communicate. So that is very important. Like Renata says, it has to be reinforced within the school and at home. So it's got to be in their daily routines. It's got to be a routine for these children. Renata mentioned it doesn't help that I come in for an hour a week and then walk out. So it's really the communication and the collaboration is of utmost importance, and it's that sharing of information, knowledge and skill that are going to help these children. So within the school environment, you listen to the teacher, you work on the goals together, and you work together to achieve everybody's goals.
Then Vicky, I mean, from a support point of view, I mean, parents need a lot of support, and I would imagine you help in setting up support groups and so on. Please take us through that.
So we do have support groups available for parents with children with autism, and they can contact our offices in relation to that.
Yeah. We'll put up your contact details
thank
on
you.
our
And
screen
also
later
our website as well, where all our contact information is.
Yeah.
In terms of school support, I agree with both Renata and Candice. Coming from a teacher standpoint, it is so important that you have that teamwork. The classroom doesn't work without support from your occupational therapist and your speech therapist, but most importantly, your parents.
Okay.
And I think support for your parents from your educators is also important.
So clearly, stigma may still be a problem, and there's a need for increased awareness going forward. Just give us a glimpse of what you're going to be doing in the coming month in terms of increasing awareness for autism.
There's various buildings that are being lit up blue. As of yesterday, they started lighting them up blue. So there's a few that are being lit up this evening as well. The Voortrekker Monument is one of them. The Nelson Mandela Bridge, Nelson Mandela statue at Sandton City is being lit up blue. There's a whole range of them. There is more information on our Facebook page as well. Next Sunday, we're doing a zoo trot in aid of autism awareness at the Johannesburg Zoo. And then the following weekend, there is a live band playing at Marks Park in Johannesburg as well. There's also various events taking place right throughout the country.
Lighting them blue just for today?
So some are today and then some are for the whole month. So yeah.
Wow. Well, ladies, it's been such a fascinating discussion. Unfortunately, we don't have all the time. Renata Mosca, speech therapist, Vicky Lemb, National Education Facilitator for Autism South Africa, Candice Els, occupational therapist, and in our Cape Town studio, Dr. Louise Lindenbeck, integrative medical practitioner with special interest with children with autism. Ladies, thank you very much for your contribution, and keep up the great work that you're doing.
Thank you.
Right, well, folks, that's it for today. That's all we had for you on our show today. Join us again next week on SABC News. A reminder to please share your views and comments with us via our Facebook page, SABC Health Talk, and follow us on Twitter at SABC Health Talk. You can watch a repeat of today's show Tuesday morning at 5 a.m. I'm Dr. Salom Tao. Thank you for watching Health Talk. Please do take care.